So for this topic of ethical and socio-cultural issues, we've got quite a lot of exam questions to go through. The first one is on performance enhancing drugs. Which of these drugs is taken to reduce heart rate? So diuretics are used to relieve the body of more water so that we lose weight. EPO is taken to produce more red blood cells for oxygen delivery, and stimulants create that buzz and alertness and increased heart rate. So the answer is beta blockers. Beta blockers reduce heart rate so that a performer feels less anxious and more calm. In 2016, 136 Russian track and field athletes were banned from competing at the Olympics due to evidence of widespread use of performance-enhancing drugs and blood doping. Describe the process of blood doping. So this question isn't asking about why you would blood dope, it's asking about the process. So 3 marks. We need to say something along the lines of the removal of blood from an athlete several days or weeks before a competition. You could have added that blood would then be frozen. The body then makes more red blood cells during training in order to replace the amount taken out. And then 1 to 2 days or shortly before the competition, the blood is injected back into the athlete so that they've then got more red blood cells. So you don't have to put that word for word at all, but if you've put something similar to those 3 points, then you're going to be getting the marks. Explain how blood doping could improve the performance of a marathon runner. Again, this is 3 marks. So now we're not talking about the process, we're talking about how blood doping might help a performer. So the marathon runner's blood has more red blood cells. The red blood cells are used to carry oxygen, so this results in an increased aerobic capacity or a greater oxygen carrying capacity, we could have said, or you might even link that to energy. That's fine as well. And this allows the marathon runner to run faster for longer before fatigue sets in, or you might have said something along the lines, it's going to be longer before the marathon runner starts to feel tired and has to slow down. State 3 negative side effects that an athlete may suffer as a result of blood doping. So what happens as a result of blood doping? We're going to have thicker blood. So there's a thickening of the blood, and you might have put increased viscosity. That basically means the thickening of the blood. This means that there is a higher potential for heart attacks or heart disease. Blood doping also brings with it a risk of blood-borne diseases such as HIV and hepatitis. That's because any time you are using a needle, such as when you blood dope, there is always a risk of blood-borne diseases, and a blockage in the blood vessel could result in a stroke occurring. I'm going to add one more in there as well. It's linked to thickening of the blood and heart attacks. Is we could also say that blood pressure will increase, so you could end up with higher blood pressure. Suggest the negative impacts that Russia's ban at the Olympics may have had on the sport of athletics. So this has picked a particular situation from sport where Russian athletes have been banned as a whole from the Olympics. So we've got to try and use a bit of common sense here to come up with 4 marks, suggesting the negative impacts that this has had on athletics. So there's a whole range of different answers you could have put. You could have put the reputation is damaged of the sport. Successful performers may be suspected of cheating, giving the sport of athletics a negative image. You could lose, individual athletes could lose income due to loss of sponsorship. Reduced number of spectators wanting to attend athletics events because they just think, well, athletes just cheat. I don't want to go and watch that. Participation levels may fall as people think it's impossible to achieve without taking drugs. Sport of athletics has to invest more and more money into drug testing, which is very, very expensive. Loss of trust in the results. Need to revisit previous scores results. So they might need to look back at Olympics 4 years ago, or 8 years ago, or 12 years ago, and think about whether there was cheating going on in terms of performance enhancing drugs at that point. Honest athletes are tarred with the same brush and lose credibility, or honest athletes lose opportunities through no doing of their own. So lots of different ideas there, but we need 4 in total in order to gain full marks. Define gamesmanship and sportsmanship. Gamesmanship is attempting to gain an advantage by stretching the rules to the limit. If you put bending of the rules, that is absolutely fine as well. Bending of the rules, but not breaking the rules, anything along those lines. Sportsmanship is conforming to the rules, spirits, and etiquette of sport. Describe 2 different examples of sportsmanship. So a specific one for football, kicking a ball out of play in football when an opposing player is injured, shaking hands with an opponent or official at the beginning or end of a game in tennis. Obviously, if you related shaking hands to any sport, you're going to get a mark for that. Not arguing with a referee in a game of rugby, walking when you know you have hit the ball in cricket and being caught rather than waiting for the umpire to give the decision that you are out. So that's some honest behaviour coming in there. It's an important point here is that it's asked for examples and they're all specific to a sport. So if you put a general example, so if you just put shaking hands, then maybe you wouldn't have got the mark for this one. It's always important to give a specific example to a sport. So shaking hands at the end of a game of tennis, for example. Identify 2 positive effects of having spectators at a sporting event. So the 2 main ones that you may have put a creation of an atmosphere, which can help to improve performance, and home field advantage. So that's the home crowd getting behind their team. But we also could have put a source of revenue because the spectators are obviously paying a fee to the clubs to come and watch, increase the profile of sport, and motivates participants. Explain why the following may lead to hooliganism at football matches. 4 marks. So we've got to split this into 2 sets of 2 marks. So alcohol and drugs. It is argued that alcohol or drugs lessen inhibitions, and you might have linked that or put instead that there's less focus or concentration used by people who have taken alcohol or drugs. So they therefore may make decisions that they regret. People may also get involved in things that they may not normally get involved in. I'd also add there as well, if you've made a link to people become more confident having taken alcohol or drugs, and this may result in hooliganism, then that is okay for a mark as well. Gang culture is thought to be linked to tribal behaviour, gang culture, and gangs protect their local area or patch from away fans. So that might be a reason why home fans, particularly at local derbies, display gang behaviour and act like hooligans. And final question, many performance-enhancing drugs are not allowed in sport. However, some performers still take them because of the positive effect that they have on their bodies. Complete table 2 to identify the correct PED or positive effect on performer's body. So we've basically got to complete this table over here. So anabolic agents is the performance-enhancing drug. What is the positive effect on the performer's body for 1 mark? So hopefully we remembered that anabolic agents increase the rate and amount of muscle growth, or you could have put an increase in muscle mass would be fine. Speed up the recovery process after exercise or after weights sessions in particular, and may make the performer more competitive and aggressive. So just 1 mark for any of those. Second part of the table, increase in mental and physical alertness, and we've got to name the PED. So the answer would be stimulants. Remember, stimulants increase your heart rate and rate of alertness. Diuretics is the drug being given. What's the positive effect? It removes excess water from the body, which results in weight loss, which, for example, in boxing will allow a performer to be within a weight limit. And also another reason people take diuretics or may take diuretics is to remove other illegal substances from the body. Finally, we've got a positive effect, reduce the feeling of pain, and the PED would be narcotic analgesics.